بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. Welcome back, my dear students, and today we are going to start a new class. This is Unit 2, Lesson 4, and in order for you to get ready and to follow me well, I'd like you to open your students' books to page 26. Page 26 of your students' books. So let's get started. In this class, we are going to listen to 2 recordings, and we are going to stop to ask and answer a couple of questions. So, here we go.
Pages 26 and 27. 8. Reading. Crime puzzles.
The case of the stolen jewels. Detective Combs was at the coffee shop around the corner when he learned that Jones's jewelry had been broken into. He arrived at the scene of the burglary in moments. Mr. Jones, the owner of the store, explained what had happened. I arrived this morning to open up the shop. As I walked up to my store, I noticed a lot of broken glass on the pavement. I looked up and realized that the display window had been broken. Combs looked out the broken window at the sidewalk, littered with glass. Mr. Jones continued. Then I saw that all of the jewelry from the display window was gone. The doors were still locked, so this must be where the burglar broke in. Why didn't the alarm go off? Asked Combs. It's a strange coincidence, said Mr. Jones. I removed our old alarm system yesterday and made an appointment to have a new one installed today. Combs looked around at the empty jewelry cases. I assume your jewelry was insured? Of course, said Mr. Jones. Thank goodness for that. Combs nodded and said, Mr. Jones, I believe there was a crime indeed, and it was committed by you. What crime does Combs suspect Mr. Jones of committing? Why?
Okay, gentlemen, my students, can I ask you now some questions? All right. First of all, what kind of crime happened in this recording? Is it a murder? What kind of crime is it? Exactly, it's a burglary. A burglary. Okay. Right. Another question. What strange coincidence did the owner of the jewelry shop talk about? What strange coincidence did the owner of the jewelry shop talk about? You are right there. Amazing. Wonderful. Yes. The strange coincidence is that the man removed the old alarm system just yesterday, okay, and asked to have a new one installed today. Yeah, and the burglary happened yesterday when there was no alarm system. Okay. Now, the point is, another question. Are you ready for another question? Okay. All right. Why did Detective Combs suspect the owner of the jewelry shop, Mr. Jones, of committing the crime himself? Why? If we gather the lines of the crime, we can say the man disordered, okay, the man cancelled the alarm system. This is number 1. Another thing is the man broke the window from inside so that the glass litter was there outside, not inside. Okay, and of course you know that such jewelry are insured with lots of money, so we can say that the man wanted to get the insurance money. Don't you think it? Okay, thank you, that's right. Now let's move to another recording and another crime.
The case of the bowling alley murder. The Center Street bowling alley, the oldest bowling alley in the city, closed at midnight. At 4 a.m., the janitor found a terrible sight. A man with a knife in his back lying in one of the lanes. Detective Combs quickly arrived at the scene with a swarm of police officers. "Anybody know the victim?" asked Combs. "I do," said one of the officers. "That's Bob Reynolds. He's running for councilman. He and Mike Jenner have been having a bitter campaign battle." "Perhaps we should pay Mr. Jenner a visit," said Combs. Before leaving the bowling alley, Combs took his cell phone out of his pocket and left it behind. On arriving at Mike Jenner's house, Combs told Jenner, "I have some grim news. Bob Reynolds has been murdered." "No, I can't believe it," cried Jenner. "We'd like to speak with you about the murder, but first I need to get back to the police station to file the report. Can you meet me at the station?" "Of course. I'll help in any way I can." "I'll give you a call." Combs patted his pocket. "Uh-oh, I must have left my cell phone at the bowling alley. Would you mind picking it up and bringing it with you to the station?" Jenner looked confused, but said, "Sure, I'll do anything to help with the investigation." Later that day, Jenner brought Combs' cell phone to the station. He was arrested and charged with murder. Why?
Okay, that's good. Now, what was the man's name? What was the man who was murdered? Yeah, I mean, what was the man murdered called? What was his name? Yeah, Bob Reynolds. Exactly, good. So this time the crime is a murder. Now, where did this murder take place? Yes, right. It happened at the Center Street bowling alley. Right. Now, how did they discover the murderer? What was the man, the detective, like? The detective, Mr. Combs. How do you like him? Yes, he was a very intelligent guy. What intelligent act did he do to find out about the murderer? Right, he left his mobile phone on purpose in that place and asked the man, Mike Jenner, the rival, the political rival for the murdered person, asked him to go and get his phone from the bowling alley. Okay, now why do you agree with Detective Combs that the man that Mike Jenner was the real murderer? Why? Yes, exactly, because there were lots of bowling alleys in the city, but Mike Jenner only went to that self-same bowling alley and get the man's phone. This means that he has been there. Okay, that's right. And what other evidence might you depend on to say that the man was the real murderer? Exactly, good. He was his political rival, and there was a bitter campaigning battle between them. So, yes, he might have killed him, or he must have killed him to win the elections himself. Okay, that's right. Now let's move to find out about the answers.
The case of the stolen jewels. Detective Combs suspects that Mr. Jones took the jewelry himself and pretended that there had been a burglary so he could collect insurance money. The broken window is Combs's clue. If someone had broken into the store, the broken glass should have been on the inside of the shop. Since it was outside the shop, the window must have been broken from inside. The case of the bowling alley murder. Detective Combs never told Mr. Jenner in which bowling alley the murder took place. Yet Mr. Jenner knew which bowling alley to go to for Combs's phone. Mr. Jenner must have known where the murder took place because he was there.
Very intelligent. Okay. Now, what do you think of these answers, these questions, rather, the true-false questions? Detective Combs was at the police station when he heard about the robbery. The broken glass was inside the store. The Center Street bowling alley is the only bowling alley in the city. Mike Jenner was Bob Reynolds' friend. Combs left his cell phone at the bowling alley on purpose. That is intentionally. What do you think? Think it over. Yes, you are right there. All of the sentences are false except for the last one. Combs left his cell phone at the bowling alley on purpose, intentionally, to seize, to seize the suspect. Right, exactly. Now, this exercise, the speaking activity, talk about the characteristics of a good detective work in pairs or groups. Write your ideas in the organizer below. Use the organizer to discuss in groups or in class. Crimes that a detective investigates and characteristics needed to solve crimes. What do you think? Okay, I would like you to go home and prepare, to fill in this chart with your own information so that with the next class we'll be having a speaking activity on this chart. Thank you so much for following me this class. Have a good day and see you.